So exciting. All right, welcome everybody to our knit along for the Mix It Up Stash sweater. I have both of mine behind me on mannequins. Today we're going to do a little bit of show and tell of our yarn stash. I'll share with you some of the ways you can figure out your yarn weights and things like that. We're going to talk about how I come up with color suggestions and color ideas. And we will talk about how to choose what patterns go where in your sweaters and things like that, and discuss sizing and anything else you want to talk about. This will be up on YouTube at some point, again, just because I think we'll be covering some things that others may find helpful as they're knitting these sweaters. And then April 4th, we'll have our second meetup, our second and final meetup for this knit along, and certainly I'm excited to see your finished sweaters or progress at that point too. So I know some of you have pieces started. Maybe we can do like a kind of show and tell there before I dig into some of the nitty gritty of all the different things that I wanted to talk about today. So I'm going to go to a gallery view here and feel free. Does anyone want to share some of the yarns that they picked? Elaine, yeah? May I spotlight you? Is that okay? Okay. Oh, and just so everyone knows, I muted the room. So if you want to talk, just unmute yourself.
Well, Shayna, I started last month and I have a dress form as well, but I am doing it in gray.
Stunning. Oh, I love it.
And my next one is going to be in blue.
Oh, stunning. It's so funny,
you know. I've had such a wonderful time with your pattern, starting with the Bubblicious hat and KAL.
Oh.
And I'm about to start the burl snood as well.
Well, thank you, Elaine. Oh my gosh.
I love the patterns. They've just been the best. This 2022 has just been the best knitting year for me so far.
That's great. At least, right? At least we have our knitting. That's amazing. And
exactly.
I love your color combinations. I was going to say about picking colors, like my stash is all pink and blue. Like I don't know why. I do know why, they're my favorites, but like that's what I buy. So sometimes it's easy to come up with a set of colors that really work. And I love what you did with yours, Elaine. I really do.
Thank you. My friends tease me because I like black and gray all the time. And they say, and blue. And so I said, I like your pink one. And I said, you know what? I think I might do a third one with a lighter color after the blue.
That would be beautiful. Oh my gosh. And the folks who have finished these already and have been wearing their own have told me they haven't taken it off. So you will definitely get a lot of use. Even if you have 3 of them, you will get a lot of use.
I hope so. I'm at the mattress stitch point, and I'm gonna again keep working with you ladies, and then hopefully by the 4th I will either have it finished or at least we'll have the band and be working on the sleeves or vice versa. I think the next step is mattress stitch and then sleeves, if I remember correctly.
Yes, mattress stitching the shoulders and then working the sleeves from this end down. Usually I don't do that with my designs. Usually I like things in separate pieces, all seamed. But in this case, I wanted people to, since it's such a slouchy, oversized sweater and we have so many different yarns in the mix, I wanted people to be able to try on as they were knitting the sleeve to adjust length if necessary. So that was my thought in doing it that way, but I'm glad you're enjoying it.
It's been a dream. It has really been a dream because I have a knitting forum that I go to on Saturdays. We don't do it every Saturday, but every other Saturday practically. And I showed them and they're like, oh my God. And one of my friends, she has relatives in Jersey and she was saying how I'm trying to get Hope to do one. I'm like, Hope, you can do this because she's used to seaming as well. But some of my other friends are top down and they don't want any seams. So I've been trying to let them realize that seaming is not the end of the world.
No, it's not. And it gives so much structure to your sweaters, and especially with this one, you need it with, again, all the different yarns pulled into it, and it's a little slouchy and that kind of stuff. Like it gives a lot of structure. So, oh, good. I'm so glad. Yes, convince them. Seams are amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for showing and telling. Awesome. Does anybody else want to pop up and show what they've got? Arlen? Yeah, or Arlene. I'm sorry. Am I saying this wrong? Oh, and you're muted. Hold on. There we go. You got it.
Okay. It's Arlen.
Arlen. Okay, good. I was right. Okay, got it.
Okay, so I just started this.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm so excited about it because I'm always doing everything solid and muted And I don't like a lot of mixing of colors. So I'm making this for my daughter, and she's a millennium and she wants crazier the better.
Yes.
So
I love it. It reminds me of drinking like a fun drink on a beach somewhere, your colors. That's beautiful.
right. So now I have all these colors,
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
and this is all the Rowan
The
kids
kids
stuff.
showcase.
And the
Yes.
colors are so beautiful, and and it's so great to work with. I have more colors. I got
Oh
a
my
ton of
gosh.
colors, and I'm not even matching. I'm just sticking my hand in the pot and picking out a color.
That is awesome. That's awesome.
The way it comes, that's the way it's going to
Oh
come.
my gosh. It sounds like you've stepped out of your comfort zone with this, right? It's
Yes.
typically a neutral kind of, that's so funny.
Exactly.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I'm having so much fun. And that's what knitting is about.
Yes.
It should be fun. Sometimes I get stuck in a project and I'm not having fun, and I'm being tortured because I want to finish it.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that anymore.
Good for you. Yeah.
If it's not fun,
Why do
goodbye.
it? Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. I'm with you, Arlen. That's awesome. I love that you're doing this sweater in all these crazy. I know.
So fuzzy.
It is so fuzzy. I love the Kid Silk Haze. This one I did, oh, wrong one. I'm backwards in my hair, in my camera. This one I did with the mohair held throughout it, and it has this like nice
Yes.
soft taste of pink. And then this one I ended up using a lace weight alpaca. And I did have
Nice.
one student who used a lace weight wool and another person who used a lace weight cotton. So I'm curious to see what people are using as their hold along yarns. But yeah, that's lovely
I'm
colors.
using my hold along yarn is well, I can't think of the name. It's a little difficult because it's pink. I love
Ah.
pink. Everything to me is pink.
Beautiful.
But some of the colors blend in with the pink too much and falls back.
Ah,
I have to use a really strong color with the pink.
it'll pop.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's it'll come to me. It's oh, what's that yarn again?
Is it a worsted that you're using?
Yeah, it's a worsted.
Okay. Like a Malabrigo or
It's blue sky.
blue sky. Okay, very cool. Oh, well,
It's a
thank you,
blue
Arlen.
sky worsted. They're regular fiber.
Love it. I'm so glad you showed it to me. Thank you so much. That's
You're
that's
very
awesome.
welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Of course, I hope your daughter loves it. I hope she loves it. Rosemary, I see you there with your yarn. Can I add you to the screen? Is that okay? I'm gonna add you. Hi, Rosemary. How are you?
Hi. Okay, I went looking through my stash, okay, and I have a huge gigantic stash, so I can't even find everything, okay, because it's just so large. But anyways, I did already write you a question.
I just saw
because you
it.
said mohair in the background. Okay, and I don't know if I have enough mohair. So
Gotcha.
I did do machine knitting before. I haven't done it in a while. So I have a lot of stuff on cones. So I know that one's gonna go far.
Definitely.
So I have like a cream, okay, Angora, okay, that's in a you know, that's thin. It's like a 218.
Yeah.
I found, okay, what I believe is a crinkle spun.
Definitely go with that. The color is out of this world. Go for it. And especially with what
Okay,
you're
because I
holding
didn't
in your
know if
arm.
the cream would just get lost in the other colors that I have.
Yeah, it would
Okay.
dull it all
And then
down.
the
I
other
think
colors that I've
yeah.
had, I didn't realize I had this much in
the
some
earth
of this
tone.
yarn is like really old, like I bought a long time ago. Okay, this one's a Rolly Sport, it's called.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then
Yeah,
I
that
have a
label
brown
looks
one with
vintage.
that. Okay, this one's a Madeline Tosh.
Wonderful.
Okay, that's like a variegate. I don't know if you can see it that well.
They're incredible. They work
And
so
then I
well
have
together.
Cascade 220, like in a yellow orangey.
Yes.
I have a green Rolly Sport. And then this one is a staccato, and it matches with a variegated one that I have.
Stunning. Very cool. Yeah, they.
Okay, I
love
just
the
don't
colors.
know how I'm gonna put it all together. That's my
Well,
biggest
that's, yeah,
problem.
we'll talk a bit about that, but
Okay.
what you're showing me in terms of your stash is making me think of this sweater here. I ended up having like 6 skeins that I bought at Sheep and Wool Festival, mini skeins. Like, why'd I buy them? They were cool, they all worked together, but they weren't enough to do anything. But here I was able to intersperse them and kind of have that nice memory of sheep and wool built into the sweater. So if you have special
Yes.
skeins in your stash that are from a
Yes.
vacation or something, you know, you could make a whole sweater based on that kind of sentiment. So just as a thought, I know you weren't saying
And it's
that.
okay if you only use like some skeins in one place, but not another?
Definitely, yes. So thank you for bringing that up. So you'll notice, I keep going backwards, sorry. On this sweater here, you'll notice it's easy to see the purple, right? That magenta. I
Yes.
specifically put colors in different places on my sweater so that if I ran out of something, I wouldn't end up needing to feel like it had to match on both sides. So I went really wild, just placing colors wherever I wanted.
Okay.
And also making the sizes of the colors different. So down here, I have 8 rows of garter stitch. Here I have 10 rows. There I have 6. So really changing it up and never getting into too much of a pattern with the color and trying for symmetry. Like that's a recipe for disaster in this sweater. You want to make sure that you're keeping everything as wild as you can. And that way, again, if you run out of yarn, which is the goal, right? We're using stash. We want it gone so we can buy amazing new yarns at the yarn shop. That way, if you end up using up one of your yarns, you're not then stuck with an arm that doesn't have the same color and you've spent all this time trying to match it. So just as a thought, that's for everybody, something to think about. But yeah, thank you, Rosemary, for showing.
Okay, I also want to share, I just before I went to my email and I found out that I did that Stitch It Forward challenge, okay, with the Craft Yarn Council of America. And I won with my story about my kids that I taught to knit when I was teaching.
Oh
Yeah,
my
so I'm gonna
gosh.
get some surprise package in the
That
mail.
is so exciting. Oh, I hope it's more stash yarn for you to put into your sweater. Oh my gosh. We just got a chat from Linda, and then when I see your hand up. So yeah, from Linda to show the back of the sweater. Absolutely. Yeah, so here's the back. So I have segments that are longer, segments that are or wider, or deeper, whatever we want to say. But you can see on the sides of the sweater, I didn't have anything really match up on the side. So this was very intentional so that as soon as I ran out of a yarn, I didn't feel badly that I couldn't include it somewhere because it was so random that it didn't need to be anywhere else. Okay. And this was an interesting one. This was one, somebody had given it to me. It was a Be Sweet yarn was the brand. I think they are long gone, but it was all different. It was like a self-striping on its own with mohair and ribbons and all sorts of things. And just the colors worked beautifully, I thought, with this combination. And now with this sweater, like it's a little random. I threw in a purple, a very dark purple. I also have a blue sparkly in here. So feel free to get a little bit creative with your colors. You can always rip, you know, I know it's no fun to rip, but there's a reason it works. You know, that's one of the benefits and beauties of knitting is that if something's not feeling right, you can rip. And I did rip parts of my sweaters as I was going when I felt a yarn wasn't the right width or depth, you know, like when it felt too thick or too thin, I would adjust. So feel free to adjust. And my test knitters, when they were starting their sweaters, all of them said, wow, I thought it was going to be one way when I was knitting my sweater, and it just totally, completely changed. Like as they were knitting, every expectation they had about the sweater shifted. Like they thought they'd be putting this yarn with that and the color and this, and all of a sudden they're bringing in new yarns, and it's kind of magical. I think the sweater, it's a lot of fun to knit. All right, so I think Wynn wanted to share. I'm gonna add you in. Hi, Wynn.
Hi. Okay, so I've got some concerns about the shape it'll come out because I'm a pear shape, so I always have to make the shoulder, the upper bust small and the bottom of the sweater larger. So I'm gonna start on a size 15 needle at the bottom and just keep track of rows.
Got it.
and work my way down to 10.5, so that by the time I get to the arm scythe, or I guess this is really a dolman sleeve. By the time I get to that, I'll be back to gauge.
So it's a bit of an extended drop. So instead of the sleeve, like you can see this, the piece coming out here, I cast on for the underarms. The sleeve the shoulder makes its way into the sleeve, and I'll put this on. You might want to, have you started yet, Wynn?
No, I haven't. I want to show you my stash that I put together too.
I wonder if starting with a larger size rather than a larger needle, and then doing some decreasing to create an A-line shape, or another thought would be cast on the extra and do, say, like 6 decreases across one row at 6 inches, and then another 6 decreases or whatever you need to get down to your number by the time you get to the shoulders, to kind of create a like a rounded edge at the bottom rather than the larger needle.
Well, I did do some swatching, and hang on, I gotta
Just so you
switch
can
the
see it.
camera.
So, I mean, I can't say I'm pear-shaped, but I definitely, you know, I do come out a little bit. But let's see. Oh,
I did
beautiful.
my swatch, and you know, the 15 isn't that much different
Oh,
than
good. Okay, that's what I was
half.
worried
So
about.
I
that-
think, no, I've done it. I did this on your quadruple when I changed it into an A-line
Okay.
cardigan. It works out okay.
That's what I was
It
worried
makes it
about. that
real
would be
light
too
and
slouchy.
fluffy at the bottom, you know?
Gotcha. Yes.
So I have my stash. So the main thing is going to be this right here, which a
Gorgeous.
local dyer made, and that'll be my worsted weight for the trim and then the carry along. Then I have
Lovely.
some piles
Oh my gosh.
of things that and should I wind it all at once?
No, you can wind as you need it. You might find as you're knitting that one of the colors you thought was going to look great in there, you don't even need or want. And then, you know, I mean, eventually you'll probably wind it in general because it's your yarn and you'll use it. But if you want to just get into the knitting of it, just wind what you know you're going to be using to start.
Well,
I
I'm
love-
wondering too about the contrast too,
Mhm.
because some are very darker in the blue, like
Yeah.
this pile, you know, and then some are kind of similar.
Yes, I love that. They all look like fingering though, like a lot of fingering there.
No,
Yes.
no. What this
No?
is one fingering with 2 DK.
Got it.
Same,
Okay.
same thing
Oh,
there.
made your piles.
Same
Good.
thing there. These are 2 sports together. And then
Okay.
these are 3 fingering, but I had 2 of these, and this is actually fingering. This is like old acrylic
Got it.
blend wool that I picked up probably for free at some
Pretty.
yarn
So you're thinking
giveaway.
of stranding those 3 together, those 3 fingers?
Yeah. And I
Cool.
wrapped, and it came out as worsted weight, so I think I'm okay.
Lovely. And I'll show everybody how to do the wraps per inch too. I have my little tool here for everyone. Oh, I love
have a
it.
question.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
sure. Yeah, what's going on, Arlen? And I'm thinking,
The
processing
sweater
with
that
it.
you showed us behind you, in the back, there was a large patch of an off-white. I wanted to know what stitch that was.
Sure. Yeah, this large patch, that's a double moss.
Oh, a
What did I
double
call it? I may
moss.
have called it moss stitch in the pattern. I forget. I've
Okay.
changed what I've called it lately.
Very
someone kind of-
pretty.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's
Works
2,
well, a lot of
yeah, 2
texture.
rows, knit 1, purl 1, 2 rows, purl 1, knit 1.
Right.
So when you may want to take, I noticed you kind of grouped your colors in complementary groups.
Yes.
You may want to mix it up a little bit and throw one
Mm-hmm.
of the contrasting colors in with one of the light colors
Mm,
as a thought
I will.
to bridge
Yes.
the gap between things, just as a thought. And again, things as you start knitting this, you're going to start off in one direction thinking, okay, I'm putting these yarns together. And then
Mhm.
as soon as you start seeing them knit up together and doing your stitch patterns, you might go in a totally different way, and it's okay. You'll surprise yourself. But
Yeah.
what
Okay,
I
so
will
I'll
say,
put
looking at your stash, it's perfect. Like there's nothing, like there's no choice you're gonna make in this sweater that will not be beautiful. Oh, did I say that? That was a couple of negatives. Any choice you make in this sweater will be beautiful, just based on your stash alone there. You're not
Okay,
gonna-
so I'll
yeah.
keep it as a grouping, but if I find that I do want to mingle some of the things together, I'll know what's what's fingering and what's decaying.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. The benefit of having that carry along yarn is that it bridges everything together.
Yes.
But you know, of course you can switch things up. Yeah, awesome. Oh, thank you, Wynn. Okay, Maureen, I see your hand up. Are you ready to join me?
Yeah, and I unfortunately, because I'm not where my stash is, I don't have my yarns here, because I'm gonna use my Milwaukee stash. But one thing I was thinking of doing was maybe doing either a marl or something in a sequence knit, doing it, but it sounds like this isn't the right pattern for it. You're saying it's better to mix it up than have some kind of a marled fade or something. Like I was thinking of using 2 or 3 different mohairs throughout it to change the colors, kind of like what I'm doing with Penguano.
So let me open up hold on, I opened up Ravelry so that I could show everybody some of the projects. And there's one in particular that I'm thinking of when you ask that question, and that is Debbie's here. Now, Debbie used a mohair that self-stripes.
Yeah, that was the one I saw when it was.
Yeah. So the mohair itself was changing colors in long spaces as she went through. So this color down at the bottom may have been this, like the yarn colors, not the mohair, may have been the same as this color up here, but since the mohair changed, it all shifted. So that could be very interesting, actually.
Well, or specifically, and actually I do have it here. I went to Loops in London yesterday
Ooh,
and
lucky.
had a whole bunch. They had a crazy assortment of Spin Cycle, including custom colors. So I bought I have a picture of it up here. I have the yarn downstairs. And I bought like a fade of Spin Cycle colors and was thinking about, because Spin Cycle is such a crazy yarn, whether something like that might work.
So
And
the yarns that I put into here were a fade. The set that I had purchased at the Sheep and Wool Festival in New
that
York.
was a Spin Cycle fade. I had
Stunning.
and I did buy those. And I also bought
Good for
this
you.
fade of Spin Cycles, because
Oh
their
my gosh.
like selection of colors was insane.
That's gorgeous. So,
you know,
okay.
And it's one Spin Cycle for sure is one of the yarns. If you order it, you might get a light one as opposed to a saturated
Right.
one.
So since you have so much of it, you definitely have enough for the sweater, and we're not working with like little balls like this, right? Like sometimes with the stashes that I was using, I had little odds and ends. If you have full balls, yes, you could definitely do a whole sweater where you're planning a fade, where you're starting with your darker color and moving up to the light, or starting with the blue and going to the pink. Yeah, definitely. Then I think that would be the scenario in which you could plan out your colors and have some symmetry in the sweater.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And then, but still do the band and the mohair in a solid or one of the colors. I could use the darker color to do it.
One of the colors, commit one color to the band. If you're doing the pockets, that too. So the colors I used on my bands in both of these sweaters, and this is, I mean, obviously the things we're talking about here for everybody. These colors were not repeated anywhere else in the sweater. And that's, I think, part of what makes it so special is that, or pulls the design together, is that there's one specific color here. So my border color is only in my borders and nowhere else. And it pulls the whole thing together. So choose one color to have as your band and leave it that way. Yeah.
Okay, great. And you still
Awesome.
think run the mohair through it to give it the halo, or not necessarily?
I would do it. And are you going to change textures as you're changing colors?
I was thinking about doing, me, I don't like to follow rules.
I
but-
know. Well, that's the best part of this cardigan, right? I have lots of suggestions in the pattern, but really there are no rules.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of changing the texture, because that's the whole beauty of it, to play around, and especially with the Spin Cycle where you don't know exactly what's going to happen next. There's
Yeah.
a little mystery.
Yes. Oh, it's going to be so exciting. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to test your other one first, though, I think.
Okay. Whatever you want, Maureen. Awesome. All right. So,
Thank you.
Let's check. Is everyone all right? So we'll come back in a few minutes and chat with anyone who wants to show me more. I wanted to show everybody the inspiration for this sweater. or kind of the first varieties of the sweater. A few years ago, I made a baby blanket called the Zucchini baby blanket. I made this for my husband's cousin who was having a baby. I couldn't get to a yarn store for whatever reason. This was BC, before COVID. But I ended up pulling out all the purples in my stash, and I noticed that the yarn gauges didn't match. I had sport, I had fingering, I had worsted, and I was like, well, they all work. I want to use them. So I ended up figuring out how to strand the different yarns together. I held together a DK weight and a fingering here. This is a single strand of worsted, and then this is double strand of sport. And I realized that by doing all these different textures with these combined yarns that aren't necessarily exactly the same gauge, you are not committing yourself to having to have the blanket be exactly the right feel the entire way throughout. So there are certain sections that feel a little more dense or a little softer than other ones, but with all the varying textures, it works. So this was the first iteration of this concept that I've been doing with the stash. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, I was like out of my mind knitting cat beds for my sister. I don't know what I was thinking for her cats. I was going crazy with it. And finally I was like, all right, knit something real. So I used that same concept from the zucchini blanket, and I did the fantastic stash shawl. All right, so that's where this one came. And this one, same concept. I'm stranding together here. I think it's 2 sports. This is a worsted. So this was my second. Yeah, Michelle, I do. This was the second kind of stash pattern that I created. And then a year ago, my husband and I and our family, my son, we moved. And before we moved, I was going through my yarn stash, and a lot of these yarns I was pulling out and getting ready to donate or get rid of. And I was like, I can't get rid of them. They're beautiful. I need to knit with them, especially this Be Sweet yarn that had all those textures in it. And I noticed the pile that I was pulling together of yarns to say goodbye to really worked. And I threw in a cream, I threw in a mohair, and I said, oh, that's a sweater. And so I used the concept from the zucchini blanket and the fantastic stash shawl to come up with this sweater. And then the shape of it was actually based on a sweater I had knit a few summers ago. Just not one that I had designed, just one that I had knit from a European magazine. And I just really loved the way it felt when I wore it. So kind of a combination of a lot of different projects that I've done in the past came together for this sweater. And I just wanted to give everybody a sense of where that all came from. In terms, okay, Michelle asked if I have a pattern for zucchini blanket. I do. It hasn't been updated to my new style, my new writing and all of that. But if you buy it at some point, I will get there and fix it up. So in terms of color, I was mentioning before that my stash tends to be lots of the same colors, grays, blues, pinks, purples, like in that vicinity, in that range. So pulling together different yarns was not a problem. But I know for a lot of folks, you may be dealing with lots of colors in your stash that are random. Whenever I'm in one of those scenarios, what I tend to do is I either tone it down with a neutral. I'll do all my wild colors and then have a black or brown and tone it down. Or I find art that inspires me and that the colors please me. So maybe you have a lot of these kind of earthy colors. You can throw in a bright white, a black, or even an like a maroon or the aqua color here, and take it in a whole new direction. So sometimes I tend to hang on to books that inspire me with colors. This is like Rex Ray. I actually designed a hat based on this artist. But yeah, there's just so much color inspiration for me in these books. Or there are things like color books that you can use that help you really define what colors work with one another. So there are things like that. If anyone has a bunch of colors today that they want to show me in the screen and find out what I would add to it, if you're worried that you may not have enough yardage, that could be a fun thing for us to discuss. And I have lots of color cards here that I can kind of show you colors that I think would work. And that would be a great thing too for our Ravelry discussion page, because you can put up a picture of all your yarn and say, I need extra. What can I add? There may be a knitter here with us who has yarn that they would be willing to send you. I did that with a few of my test knitters where I sent bundles of yarn to them. Just that was a great way to get rid of stash. Anyway, so that's sort of a little bit about picking color. And then one of the main things we talk about in the pattern is figuring out what yarn weights you have. So you may have oddballs, right, in your stash, and you have no clue what size they are, what size yarn they are. You can guesstimate, or if you remember where you bought it, then maybe you know what yarn it is, and then even though it doesn't have a label, you know that, oh, this is the Malabrigo Rios or whatever it is. But I did recommend in the pattern to do wraps per inch. So I'll just do a quick tutorial on wraps per inch. This is a little tool I got for figuring out wraps per inch. You'll notice there are these little grooves within the tool here. You can lay your yarn in that groove, and if it's about that size, that's one way to figure out what size yarn you have. So this would be a fingering, or I'll go with my bulky yarn because that'll make life a little easier. So that would be a bulky, fits right in there. Or the true way to use it is you start wrapping your yarn within this little inch at the top of the piece. And you don't need a fancy tool like this. You can also use just a ruler or a straight something that has an inch marked off on it. But ideally, what you're doing here is you're going to gently fill up this inch with your yarn, and you're not tightening the yarn like this because that makes it too skinny and it fills in more. But here, what you're doing is you're filling it till it's just full. You're not squeezing in extra. You're not tightening the yarn. And then you count the number of wraps that you have here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm about at a bulky 7 wraps per 1 inch. So this one I bought through Knit Picks, but they are available all over the place. I think, yeah, Katrinkles makes them, and Katrinkles, the company, makes them for different places. So like Knit Picks orders them from Katrinkles, or you can your local yarn shop may have them too. I think near me, I know Knit Tapestry had them because I did a class in this sweater for them. So yeah, just as a heads up. So these are
Shayna, what's the tool called? What is that tool called?
this is called a wraps per inch tool, a WPI tool. And I know one of my students picked it up on Etsy, found one on Etsy. If you like shopping on Etsy, she found one there. Yeah. So we covered a bit of wraps per inch. Once you've figured out what weights all your yarn are, then you can put them into different categories of their weights. If you've ever seen my home, you know I'm not so organized, but I'll tell you how you could be organized. You can put all the different yarn weights in different bags, and then in the pattern, I have a chart for you on how you combine them. So we have our mohair in this case, or the alpaca I used, a lace weight carry along that you hold throughout the entire sweater. So when you're knitting the border, when you're knitting everything in the body, there's one strand of yarn that's throughout the entire thing. And then you're either holding that with one strand of worsted weight. So here's worsted with one strand of the carry along. Here's one strand worsted there. You're doubling up sport weight, or you're holding a strand of fingering with a strand of DK. And each of those combinations equal about a worsted weight. And then adding that mohair to it bumps it up to a chunky, which is why we're on like a 10-ish, 10 and a half for the sweater. Yeah. Just to give you a little bit of that information too. I'm going to switch back over to gallery view. Does anyone have questions about any of that so far? Okay, no, okay, cool. So let's chat. I think that was mostly what I wanted to discuss today in terms of the pieces. Oh, fit for the sweater. Did anyone have questions about fit and what size you're doing, that kind of thing? It's very forgiving in terms of size, I will say that. So my sweater here, as you can see, oversized, cozy. This is, I think, the 3rd size. I typically knit the 3rd size in any of my designs. That's usually my size, although I have a sweater right now that I'm knitting the 4th size, but this is the 3rd size, and there's a lot of ease, which means if my body measures 40 inches around at the widest part, my sweater may measure 50 inches or 48 inches. My sweater has a lot of extra fabric than what my body measurement measures. And that makes it slouchy and forgiving. If you want it to be fitted, maybe you would go down a couple sizes and knit to your actual body measurement. I will show you on the schematic. And again, this is a bit for posterity, but we'll talk too, because I know we're here to schmooze and chill. But this is the sweater here. On the last page of the pattern, I have the schematic and then the finished measurements. So the finished measurement of the third size across at the bottom is 45 inches. If my bust is 40 and I really want it to be more fitted, I might even do this size here and get the 39-inch finished measurement. That would be a fitted tight sweater. If I just want it to be just fitting, then the second size, but the way that I had imagined this to fit would have been that measurement here, the 45. So hold on, I'm just gonna scroll up real quick. Sorry. All right, so here you'll notice in my pattern to fit bust, yada, 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 all these sizes. And then the finished bust is an additional 8 inches. So actually, even though I knit the third size, usually my bust is around a 41. So I knit the one size down. So go down a size if you're between sizes, is what I wrote. That way it's not too big. All right, so that's just, I write to fit bust, but that doesn't mean that that's the actual measurement of it. That's just how I recommend you have it fit. Oh, Maureen, thank you. Maureen's great. She just put up in the chat some places where you can get those wraps per inch tools if you would like. I happen to love the Crinkles one because it's got the grooves in it, but a lot of places are doing that now. So awesome. All right. Oh, hey, Michelle. I saw your name pop up in the chat before, but I didn't put it together till I saw your face. How are you? Good. Aw, awesome. All right, so does anyone want to show off their yarn or their progress, or do you have questions about your stash? Hi, Judy.
Hey, I had said to you when you showed the pattern the first time that I wanted to use my hand spun. So I have dug through and I've got all of these different colors. But then I looked at them and I said, okay, my band needs to be a color that will sort of tie in. And I'm thinking like a deep burgundy, maybe.
That would be so lovely. Yeah.
And then whatever I used as my carry along, what do you suggest?
I almost maybe a rose pink, like somewhere in the grayish pink family. Oh, actually, that's weird. Okay, so the top card on my color family card is this. Like that kind of a pink.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. That was very much fate. I have a huge stack of color cards, and that was the first one on top. But yeah, something like that. Oh, I love it. Or even a softer color, like a blossom, like a more peachy.
No, I don't think peachy is going to go with this. These are,
the more deep. Okay, a more brownish. Yeah. All right, let's see. Would something like this work? Like a
No, I don't know. Maybe it's because that's not one of the colors that I would lean towards.
Understood. Got it.
One that you showed up, which was, I don't know, which.
This first one?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That one.
It's kind of a rosy color, but yes. Yeah, it's tricky on the computers. And I just got new lighting in my office, so things are a little weird, but I'm not like used to it. Let's see, let me just go through. They're beautiful, your hand spun. I mean, I wonder if this might be too dull, going with sort of like a grayishy.
I don't want to mute these colors particularly. No. I want to enhance them.
Yes.
I found this on Fairly Yarns. I don't know if this will work. It's kind of that browny rose.
Hold on, let me add you. Hey, Wynn. Oh, that's lovely.
Yes, it is.
That is lovely. Yeah.
That's from Webb's.
Okay.
Yeah, like a dusty rose. That's beautiful. And then your softer colors, Judy, will pop through. It'll kind of pull everything together. But I know you've worked so hard to spin that yarn. You don't want any of it hiding. Yeah. right? If I had spun all my own yarn, oh my gosh. I'd be walking around like this, holding the piece up. Oh my gosh, that's just so much beautiful work. But that's gorgeous. And yes, I think of burgundy. I think of burgundy. And you'll notice my two sweaters, I keep pointing to the wrong one. This one has a lighter band and this one has the darker. So you can see the different, you know, like they each have a pull out a different color within the sweater when you go light or dark. So if you go with that darker band, you're probably going to be pulling through a lot of your, like that gorgeous green and red one that I'm seeing, and the darker maroon. Yes. Yeah. And then your lighter pinks are just going to pop. Like in the same way that on here, the whites kind of pop out.
Okay,
Oh,
thank
I
you.
cannot wait to see it. And I'm so flattered that you're using my design for your beautiful yarn. So thank you. That's awesome. All right. Does anyone else want to show their yarn, ask questions? Love to see what you're knitting on in general. Let's see. Michelle, are you going to knit the sweater?
Yes, I am, but I have like so many projects, and I still want to do the project that we did in Amherst.
Massachusetts? Yeah.
Yes, for my son. So, but you know, now I'm just doing something, you know, with a peer of yours, the Casa Pinka.
Very nice. Oh, beautiful.
So again, you know, different.
Love the colors.
Different colors, different patterns. But
oh my gosh.
This is kind of like the same concept that you have in the different stitches. I think I'm showing it to you. No, I'm showing it to the right.
You're showing the right
but,
side.
But it's all fingerly. It's all very
yeah, right.
Fingering
Like fine.
ways.
So Casa Pinka are you doing? What Casa Pinka are you doing?
Botanique.
Have the yarn for that too.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Jackie, I see your hand is raised. Is that
Sure.
hello?
I don't know if I have enough light. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm going to spotlight you with me. Yeah. How are you?
Okay. Good. How are you?
Good.
This
Thank
is
you.
I don't know. I just gathered these up. This is probably called like blue and green risk. I don't know, but I just had this variety of greens and blues, and
Perfect.
I like them. And some of them are like the wildest one.
I see that
here.
like neon green in there. That is really fun.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But with the mohair, that'll tone it just enough, I think, to make it work.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know what the border should be, though. I'm not sure about that.
What color mohair do you have? That soft blue that I'm seeing there on your ring?
Yeah, there's this turquoisey one. Then I have, this doesn't work, but I've got like a rose. I have a gray or a, neutral.
The gray would pull everything down and just make it a little bit softer. That would soften it. The blue is just going to keep everything nice and blue, that turquoise that you have. I'm also I'm sort of thinking navy, but obviously we want to use stash here. But if you happen to have some navy in there, that
I'll
could
look,
kind of...
I have a bunch of like Kid Silkes and Ariel from some other things, which at first I thought about because I have this
oh, you have a red family there. Yeah, I see it. It's like a beautiful maroon.
Like that Anniversario Rios.
I love that color. That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
I love that color.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just didn't want to stick all the reds with but who knows? As I go, things might transpire.
You might, and it happened to me too, where I had a big pile of yarn and then certain colors, I just thought, no, I don't have to use this for this. Or I pulled in others. You may find that you start with your blues and you want to pull in the reds for the Anniversario and maybe use some of those mohairs as not the carry along yarn, but one of your actual yarns. You could call it a fingering weight and just have 2 strands of mohair along with your DK or something like that. So that could, But I
Sure.
see where you're going. I like the way you put it all together on a ring. That's very interesting. I like
Oh,
that.
that's just a circular needle. I decided to put it on.
Well, very
It was just
creative.
easier to pick it all up, you
It's
see.
very earthy. It's so pretty. Yeah, I could see putting like a really dark navy in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if you happen to have a navy, or like kind of pulling the blues and just letting your greens be like in the same way that on this sweater I have my orange and purple popping through, like that could be your greens, where overall the sweater is blue.
Okay,
As a thought.
cool.
Yeah. Oh,
Great,
neat.
thanks.
Awesome. Oh, it's so fun looking at everyone's stash. And I do hope you'll all put pictures up on the on the Ravelry group so that we can all see and comment and all that. It's fun. So, oh, but thanks, Jackie. That's awesome. Let's see. And Arlen, how are you doing?
I just picked another color
Ooh, let's see.
and I'm doing a gold.
Love it. Oh, it's so happy. It is so happy. That's awesome. We should also talk about choosing your stitch patterns. Actually, it just occurred to me as another thing to discuss in the sweater. Let me open up to that page on the pattern, and I'll quickly cover that, just so, again, if anyone's, so that you're all getting this info and anyone watching the YouTube recording gets it too. So there are 4 stitch patterns basically that I recommend in the pattern. I'm saying 4, even though there are 5 here, because the ribbing I use only for the borders. I did not use that throughout the sweater at all, in the body of the sweater, because it pulls in. So I only use that at the borders. So you'll see that suggested for border only. And then the rest of the patterns here are very simple knit purl patterns. So we've got stockinette, knit a row, purl a row. We have a moss stitch where you're doing knit 1, purl 1 for 2 rows and purl 1, knit 1 for 2 rows to create kind of like a tall seed stitch. Then we have a seed, of course, and garter all knit. What I do recommend when you're working on your sweater is that if you have a repeated color, and I'll just show on my page, I'll just going to change the view. Here we go. So for this sweater, what I did was any yarn that was kind of wild and interesting or multicolored, I used a very simple stitch pattern with. So for this one here, it was multicolored. I just did stockinette. And for my special Bee Sweet yarn, I did a combination of stockinette and garter stitch, because those yarns kind of spoke for themselves. Then when I had something very plain, just a plain cream yarn held with my mohair, that's where I worked in texture, like the seed stitch. Here I did the double moss, or the moss stitch, excuse me, I've changed the name. I did the moss stitch here. With this, I had some sequins in the yarn. So doing a stitch pattern that has some texture pushes those sequins to the front of the work. So if you're ever knitting with sequins and you're not getting enough sparkle, it could be because you need to have some sort of like purl bump on the right side of the work. So if you have a sequin in your project, work those in, make sure you have some texture going on so that you get your sequins to the front of the work. And once I committed a certain color combination to a pattern, so like this yarn here has stockinette stitch, I did that throughout the sweater. So that yarn has stockinette right here. Although I'm lying to you because I just noticed I have moss stitch right here with that yarn on the sleeve. But I think I may have done that because I was bridging the sleeve and the sweater, and I wanted it to be obvious that the sleeve was a little different. I'm saying that, but who knows? Again, rules are made to be broken, but ideally you want to commit certain colors to certain stitch patterns. That way there's some semblance of consistency throughout the sweater. So for a speckled yarn, the best patterning. So here I had a couple speckles. I did stockinette, a lot of stockinette with them. But here I did a moss because I had to break things up. I had a lot of those little skeins. So yeah, a lot of stockinette, but yeah, something like, yes, stockinette, garter. Here for my garter stitch, I used the solid color. I used the solid mohair, and I did that as garter throughout, just to give it a little pop, especially because this was my pop color, that purple magenta. So that garter stitch sort of pushes out a little bit, is a little more dimensional than stockinette or some of the other patterns. So that kind of gave it that extra like in your face, bright, bold color splash. Yeah. So that's just some thoughts about picking your patterns. And there's a really lovely group of knitters in Pennsylvania making this sweater. And one of them just went wild, started putting in cable patterns and lace and all these other different stitch patterns. So if you start to feel comfortable with that, with your sweater, or that's your level of knitting, go for it. I cannot wait to see what you do. But the patterns that I put in there, the stitch patterns, were just, my recommendations and what I used in mine. But I would love to see some really wild stitch patterns. Certainly when you're going into cables, that pulls in your fabric, and when you're doing lace, that pushes out. So you may have to account for some of that in your gauges, but yeah, it could be a fun thing to try. So woohoo. Awesome. Rosemary, how are you doing? Oh, good. We got two Rosemarys, two lovely Rosemarys. You're both doing well. Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions for me? Or I'd love to see what you're knitting on that's not my sweater too. I hope you'll start it tonight. But what are you working on? Oh, Win. Let's see. What is it? A blanket?
Stephen West painting waves.
Lovely. That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Very cool. Oh, Harriet, that's beautiful too. What is that?
That is a baby present. I have a cousin whose grandson is his wife is having a baby, and they went to Pitt, or he went to Pitt. And this was the closest I could come to colors without ever having seen any of them.
Understood. Very nice. Wow, that's a very sweet gift. Oh my gosh. And Vicky, what are you working on?
I'm spinning.
Nice. Oh my gosh.
Getting ready to spin.
Very cool. Oh my gosh. Do you think you're going to knit the sweater, Vicky?
Would like to. I'm not a sweater knitter.
Okay. Well, maybe
I
this
have
will.
one here.
Oh my gosh.
This is, if you may have seen this at Mohonk, I started it. So this is what it is so far. I have the sleeves on. I'm starting the sleeves, and I'm doing the yoke right now.
Jane, that's
So
magnificent.
it should be finished soon.
Let me take off my spotlight. I'm sorry. I just realized people maybe can't see. Jane, can you hold that up again?
Yeah. So it's a cardigan like this.
So stunning. Oh my gosh.
This was I got the yarn from Knit Tapestry, and I've just been going up from the bottom. I did this. I steeked the sleeves so I could have them both the same.
Gotcha.
And then
that's so smart. So you knit the two sleeves together in the round?
Yeah. Yeah. So the body's all one piece.
Gotcha.
And then the sleeves I put in, and I'm tapering it off now, like a kind of like, like the Norwegian sweaters, making it a little smaller.
Stunning.
So I did a chevron and started at the bottom. The chevron was like 18 stitches wide.
Yeah.
And now I'm at 10 stitches wide, and it'll be even narrower as it goes in for the yoke.
So cool.
It'll fit. So I should have it finished. Maybe next time I have finished, but I didn't get your pattern yet. I want to get your pattern. The only question I have is, do people sometimes do it without the the carry along yarn?
You certainly could. You may want to go with a smaller size needle and knit a larger size sweater.
Okay.
So that you like to kind of combat the difference in gauge, because the carry along does puff it up a little bit, making it better for that big needle. Or use chunky weight yarn as your kind of instead of mohair. I'm sorry, instead of worsted, chunky weight yarn would be the base. Then would be kind of your.
Well, I'm trying to look at my stash, and they're all,
Gotcha.
I could probably use like a 10 tops, Yeah.
Carry along does give it like a nice overall color theme and amps it up a little bit to that next size of yarn. But Michelle had a great question in the chat. And do I have any suggestions for weaving in ends? Yes. So first of all, if you're holding the carry along with the sweater, don't cut your carry along. Just keep that active the entire time of the sweater, so you have fewer ends in that. I waited until the end of the sweater and then wove everything into the seams. Seams are also nice. In addition to providing structure, they're a great hiding place for tails. So I wove all of my tails into the seams after the fact. However, I do have a YouTube video for weaving in tails as you're knitting. It's sort of it's kind of what you would do if you were working stranded color work and you had to catch your floats. So so I don't know, I don't know if I put that in the pattern as a link. Let me just double check. I may have written this pattern before I was putting links in. Okay, so, oh yeah, I do have it. It's in there on page 6. There are links to those tutorial videos. So you can weave in some ends as you go, but those tails will then be woven into the sweater fabric itself rather than the seam. So up to you. If one of my test knitters said she spent like 4 hours weaving in tails. I felt so bad for her. I hope. I did not spend that long doing my tails, but it definitely was, I mean, it was definitely substantial, maybe like half an hour or so. So if you want to weave in as you go, that link is in the pattern. So you could do some sort of hybrid of the two. And if you're doing really skinny stripes of colors, then you're probably going to want to weave in as you go. Here I had big enough expanses of colors where I didn't have too much yarn to weave in at the end. Yeah, but great question. Thank you. Oh, okay. So Rosemary's asking, can you mix a cotton or silk yarn for this pattern? Definitely. They have different drapes though, and so it may stretch the sweater out a bit more than say the wools that have a little more bounce and that, but yes, you can. I've had a few knitters make some sweaters of mine that were meant to be woolens in cotton blends, and they worked out. So I think this could work, particularly because we do have that hold along with it. And if you're using a cotton or silk, it might keep everything kind of together, be like a base to hold it all. Yeah, awesome. That's a great question. And
this is the sweater that I've not quite finished. I have to tie in the ends, but I figured I'd show it to you.
Oh, Rosemary, that's beautiful. So cool.
The pattern came from Portugal, and so did the yarn.
That's right. Oh my gosh, it looks, I really love the color blocking. It is so cool.
Yeah, and you can, it's very pretty also in just one color.
Yeah, but it's the color blocking is so popular right now. So, oh, thank you for showing that. That's really beautiful. I like the color combination too. I find it inspiration everywhere. So I really like, I love seeing the colors everyone's putting together. I can't wait to see your sweaters. How are you doing, Maureen?
Good. I thought I'd just share a few things. So this was kind of the same concept, but I did a poncho for the knit collage fall knit along, and I did it as a stash. Kind of, I used a bunch of different yarns. There's soul in here. There's, oh wait, I'm not holding it right. There's soul yarn, there's knit collage. I mixed different weights of yarn, and it's just kind of, I had it on today, and it's just kind of this spectacular
Oh my gosh.
So, you know, it's fun to knit all different yarns. And it was the same kind of thing. I changed it as I went and added little pops of color that ended up being great. But then I just also wanted to show, I just got off the blocking mat.
Oh my gosh.
From Cabana Boy and Keith Leonard's pooling class.
Yes.
And then
I have a skein of that I need to knit up.
And then this is your something cozy that is in Chelsea yarns, and it's so cozy, and the blocking just totally, utterly made it even better. I didn't want to take it off. I wore it 3 times without blocking it. And
oh my gosh.
I just, you know, here's how my neck came out.
I see what you did there. I like that. I like that.
So it started lower and then came up, and this, you know, whatever.
Got it. Yeah, no, we've got it. Yeah, the pattern, it has a kind of a low wide neck.
Shayna's pattern for something cozy. And if you're looking, I did this in a week, and I'm a fast knitter, but it's such an easy, beautiful pattern. And it's a mohair and like a teddy from
This glove
Keith.
stuff.
It's, Cozy DK from Chelsea. It was written for that.
That's
And
awesome.
then I'm doing my second collar wrap, which is another one of Shayna's. I'm on a Shayna. I love Shayna's patterns, but this is a wrap that I did in, I could pull it up. I did it in a regular fade, and I decided to do something a little different. I'm sorry, I'll find it very
No
quickly.
worries. While you're looking, Susan, which pattern were you wondering about? This current one, the Mix It Up stash sweater? Susan
Yes,
asked.
the current pattern and Mix It Up.
So when I've only just recently started adding links in my patterns to my tutorial videos. So patterns pre 2020 didn't have video links, but I've been doing more tutorial videos and they do have links. So this pattern, the Mixed Up Stash Sweater, has no changes. It does have links in it. I was worried it might not.
Okay.
But previous Shayna who wrote this pattern did include the links, which is such a relief. So sometimes I thank my previous self, and this is one of those moments.
I just didn't want to print it a second time if it was the same.
I hear you.
Thank you.
No. Yeah. It's the links. Yeah.
So this is what I'm knitting. Like there's I had done it in a fade of Perry, and it is a beautiful pattern because it's either a wrap or a Ruana. And I think elegant in both. So this is just a fade in a merino in a Yarn Snob kit. And I decided to get the cashmere gray gradient. And it's kind of like this, the inspiration was the Stephen West Batad that somebody had in a project in 2 colors.
So
and
beautiful.
I think it's making it the best of both worlds by adding the black. It's just going to change the nature of the garment.
Yeah, very dramatic. Very.
And I'm almost half done in 2 days. So I'm wearing it. I'm wearing it to the theater Wednesday night.
Nice. What are you seeing?
Oh, I'm seeing Dirty Dancing, the musical.
That sounds so fun. Oh my gosh.
And then on Thursday, I'm seeing Sixth for, I think, the 6th time. If you haven't seen Sixth, the musical in New York, I mean, it started in London. It's about the wives of Henry VIII. It's a little pop concert. It's fabulous.
My sister was telling me about that. Oh my gosh. Well, that sounds so fun. Oh boy.
I bought gray and black art shoes on sale to go with this already.
I love that. Buying our accessories to match the knits. I love it. Well, this has been a blast. I can't wait to see what your sweaters start to look like. I'm going to stop the recording. Here we go.